I found myself feeling really bad for how I was being triggered, by her normal childhood behaviors. And I realized that I was ill-equipped to parent her the way that I had hoped. And I realized that I had a skills deficit and I had to learn some new skills. And ultimately that led me to a search online, and I found several books. And that ultimately led me to a concept called conscious parenting. Because what I knew I didn't want to do is, I knew I didn't want to hit my daughter. I knew I didn't want to use verbal manipulation and intimidation. But those are the things that I was doing, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to punish. I didn't want to do any of these things. And I wanted to figure out, how can I be in relationship with my child to help nurture her and to grow and keep her safe and healthy, while at the same time, not doing those things that I saw being done, which were rooted in power over and control.
The Grow Dialogue podcast is a liberation project that explores equity, inclusion, belonging, conflict resolution, and culture in the workplace and beyond, including in our personal relationships, families, and communities. Each week, Dr. Soon-Jahta and I will bring you insightful guest interviews and artistic expressions curated to amplify emerging voices who are sharing practices that support society's transition to a more collaborative, just, sustainable, and liberating coexistence. We live during a time when divisiveness and polarization dominate the social, economic, and political discourse. In response to this reality, and empowered with the skills of authentic dialogue and systems thinking, Dr. Soon-Jahta created an anti-oppression framework for social sustainability called Theory of Indivisibility to help illuminate a different path forward. Our hope is that these conversations and calls to action will ignite tolerance and empathy and provide guidance for our global listeners who want to actively engage in ending all forms of oppression while creating thriving relationships in the workplace and beyond. I'm Maryella Marie. Let's grow dialogue.
All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode here at the Grow Dialogue podcast. My name is Maryella Marie, and as usual, super excited to roll into these next few minutes where I will be chatting one-on-one with Soon-Jahta to introduce our next and final theme for season 1, which is family culture.
Hello, Maryella. It's good to be here with you once again.
Well, I can't believe we're wrapping up season 1 here on the Grow Dialogue podcast. And so far this season, we've heard from so many beautiful minds who are bringing equitable and collaborative change within corporate spaces, popular culture spaces, and now up next, we'll be hearing from folks who are shaking things up in family culture spaces. So to wrap up this season, we'll be featuring 3 voices who are bringing uncommon perspectives within our modern culture, who are reshaping and reimagining what family culture is and envisioning what's next in family culture. But before we reveal our 3 featured voices to close out season 1 on the Grow Dialogue podcast, Soon-Jahta, let's set the stage a little bit and let's dive into your personal reflection and your awareness of family culture. So my first question for you today, Soon-Jahta, is, can you tell our listeners what family culture means to you, and specifically how your lived experience has helped you define and redefine family culture?
When I think about family culture, I think about what are the norms, the traditions, the feeling, and just the overall energy around our family dynamic, and when we're together, and how we are for one another, how we show up for one another, the levels of trust and, things like that. Unfortunately, in some dynamics might be some fears and, just various elements, all make up family culture. And one of the things that I like to share with people is that there is a family culture, whether you are intentional about creating it or not. Your family has a culture. What we're all about is, helping folks to intentionally create family cultures at Grow Dialogue. And I know we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. So my lived experiences have definitely impacted how I understand family culture. And basically, just in my evolution of becoming a parent and having a family of my own, I was put into a position when my first child was born and she was really young, where I'll never forget, where I had to make a decision, who I wanted to be. And I remember initially parenting her. I'll say before she was born, I remember thinking that I wanted to parent her differently because I had all this data on the things that I did not like about how I was parented growing up, as well as some of the things that I did like. And I was able to, process that, think through that, and make decisions on the type of parent that I wanted to be. And then when my daughter was born, as she continued to, grow up and mature, right around when she hit the age of 3, and she started, getting into having, her own wants and needs and being able to verbalize them with, crying and things like that, as well as being, let's say, resistant to the things that her mother and I may have asked her to do, et cetera. I recall just getting really, really angry at times and not understanding why she couldn't listen and follow directions and all these various things. And I remember initially reverting back to some degree to doing things that I saw growing up, doing things that were modeled for me by the adults in my life, my parents and my extended family when I was growing up. And a lot of that, was things that I knew I didn't want to be, I didn't want to do. And they were rooted in violence. Just to be blunt and candid, they were rooted in violence. And what I mean by that is physical violence. There were times where I would grab my daughter and squeeze her arms and try to get her to listen to me, or punishments, things like sitting her somewhere and giving her timeouts and things like that. Using, physical intimidation, just using my size and my voice to try to intimidate her, to get her to move and move through the world in the ways that I thought she should, or to quote unquote obey me, et cetera. And I found myself feeling really bad for how I was being triggered, by her normal childhood behaviors. And I realized that I was ill-equipped to parent her the way that I had hoped. And I realized that I had a skills deficit and I had to learn some new skills. And ultimately that led me to a search online, and I found several books. And that ultimately led me to a concept called conscious parenting. Because what I knew I didn't want to do is, I knew I didn't want to hit my daughter. I knew I didn't want to use verbal manipulation and intimidation. But those are the things that I was doing, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to punish. I didn't want to do any of these things. And I wanted to figure out, how can I be in relationship with my child to help nurture her and to grow and keep her safe and healthy, while at the same time, not doing those things that I saw being done, which were rooted in power over and control. And I wanted to move towards a relationship that was rooted in power with and collaboration with my daughter. And I didn't have the language for these things, but I had this inner knowing inside of me that this is the direction that I wanted to go. And ultimately my search and my willingness to accept that I didn't have the tools, led me to finding conscious parenting and reading The Conscious Parent by Dr. Shefali. And that book just totally changed my world. And then of course I went on to learn more, and I'm excited about some of the guests that I'm going to introduce you all to through this series, through this theme, because these have been some of the people who continue to influence me on my conscious parenting journey, and just my desire to be in partnership with my daughter in a way that breeds mutual respect, as well as my daughter and my son, as well as ways that help them to grow up to be really, really good communicators. And I know good, that's a loaded word and I can expand, but let's say communicate in ways where they're not wielding power over and control over others. They're not using violence. They're communicating non-violently, and communicating in ways that are solutions oriented, et cetera, because I'm able to model that for them. And I've been able to do that for them from a very young age because of that shift and that decision that I made.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And I'm sure it was super challenging as well to take that leap of faith into restructuring how you want to show up and hold space as a parent for your children. So thanks for sharing your lived experience with us, Soon-Jahta. And we'll be sure to add a link to the Conscious Parenting book that Soon-Jahta mentioned here in the show notes for today's episode. Okay, so speaking of folks who are holding space with you in this intentional practice of conscious parenting and co-creating thriving communities, co-creating thriving families, we'll be publishing intimate interviews from Curt DeVeaux, youth and community organizer at City Athletics, which is a family-operated rentable facility committed to giving back to Philadelphia communities. We'll also be chatting with Yolanda Williams, who is a conscious parenting coach, a racial justice educator, and the creator of Parenting Decolonized. And last but not least, we'll be chatting with Akilah S. who is a speaker, writer, podcaster, unschooler, and the creator of Raising Free People. I'm super excited to hear what these great minds are going to share on the podcast, but let's introduce our guest speakers before we release their episodes. I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you met everyone. So can you tell us how you met Curt DeVeaux and what attracts you to the way that he envisions family culture?
Yeah, so Curt DeVeaux, which, you know, when you hear the show, you'll hear him pronounce his name, his Arabic name properly. But I met him as Curtis DeVeaux, and he then became a Muslim later on, you know, as we got older, because I met him as a ninth grader in high school. That's where he and I met, as ninth graders. And, you know, it's been really cool, you know, with him being one of my best friends. He's like a brother to me. And to watch him, you know, grow up and mature and become a father, and you know, the way that he leads, he's a leader for his family as well as his community, is really, really inspiring. So I'm really excited to share, you know, his story with you all through his interview. And, you know, with him being, you know, having, four daughters, and the ways that he interacts with his daughters. He has 4 daughters and 1 son, but specifically as a man, and the way that he parents his daughters was really inspiring to me. And he's someone that I lean on to this day when it comes to, you know, decisions that I make as a parent, because of the ways that he's, you know, leads his family. So again, I'll save it for the show. I'm excited for you all to meet him. Beautiful.
I love that. Well, we are totally looking forward to hearing the episode where you have almost an hour just picking Curt's mind and sharing tools and resources to support what he's working on. All right, so up next, can you tell us how you know Yolanda Williams and what attracts you to the way that she envisions family culture?
So I know Yolanda Williams because Yolanda Williams has a Facebook page called Parenting Decolonize. But I first met Yolanda through her Facebook group, and I'm not sure how her group got on my radar. I'm pretty sure someone I know in the self-directed education, unschooling, conscious parenting world shared something from her group on Facebook, and that's how I found it. And her Facebook group is called Conscious Parenting for the Culture, and it's specifically for people of African descent to learn and ask questions and share scenarios around conscious parenting. And it provides, you know, again, access to information as well as encouragement and advice and community for people who want to raise their children in nonviolent ways. And people who want to unlearn, you know, again, the physical and the verbal violence, the power over and control, and still figure out how to peacefully be in relationship with our children and all the things that I said previously that I learned, you know, about conscious parenting. So that's how I met Yolanda Williams. Then I learned that she had a podcast called Parenting Decolonize, and the Facebook page called Parenting Decolonize that is, you know, has tens of thousands of you know, people that follow that page, and she's very active there. And it's a movement, and it's so empowering, it's so encouraging. And, you know, I just appreciate, you know, her desire to help parents, you know, be in relationships with their young people that don't require them, again, wielding power over control and violence. That's pretty much what is attractive about what Yolanda has to say about family culture.
Amazing. I see all of the beautiful things that she's doing. I signed up for her newsletter, and she is definitely just rocking it out in the space of just decolonizing our minds, decolonizing the way that we collaborate together as family units, as community units. So I'm really looking forward as well to hearing you share space with Yolanda Williams. All right, so last but not least, can you tell us how you know Akilah S. Richards and what attracts you to the way that she envisions family culture?
When I think about Akilah Richards, again, you'll hear about how I met Akilah more specifically in the show, but Akilah has a platform called Raising Free People. And she has a podcast called Fare of the Free Child. She wrote a book called Raising Free People. Her website is raisingfreepeople.com. And I met Akilah again, oh my goodness, it was serendipitous. And you have to listen to the show to find out. But what I'll say is that, Akilah, I met her when I was on my unschooling journey and learning about self-directed education. And just, again, my desire, I had this, for whatever reason, this pull to figure out ways to be in relationship with young people that could help them to self-actualize and optimize their fullest potential. And for me, when I learned about unschooling and self-directed education, which are often used interchangeably, I saw that as an outlet, as a beacon of hope. At the time, I was teaching in elementary schools, and I felt like the system wasn't designed in a way where every child could truly figure out who they were and maximize their natural innate abilities in the world. I felt like the system was designed to create successes and failures. And when I found unschooling self-directed education, and primarily and especially when I started listening to Akilah, I realized that this paradigm of learning is something that's accessible to all, and there is no success or failure. It's just the concept that everyone is born to think and learn. And if we create the conditions for young people to have a path to think and learn, in ways that best suit them, it could set them up for long-term success. So I was really attracted to that. And that's how I, came to meet Akilah. And that's what attracted me to the way that she envisions family culture, because the way that her and her partner, unschooled their daughters is just a part of, how she shares her work with the world. And it's been so inspiring, and their family culture is so inspiring. So yes, can't wait for you all to meet Akilah.
Yes. Everything on her podcast and her website is just an incredible amount of resources and support. So I definitely am looking forward to you sharing virtual space with Akilah S. Richards, and for our listeners to just eat up all the things that you all are going to crack open on that episode. So at Grow Dialogue, we offer a co-creating a thriving family culture training. Some of you may already know this, some of you may already have participated, so we appreciate your support there. Soon-Jahta, can you take us behind the scenes and tell us what prompted you to create this offering and training? And also, what's the goal of this training? What does it include?
Co-creating a thriving family culture. I'm so excited to share this offering with our Grow Dialogue podcast listeners. This offering is something that it's just a combination of literally, my parenting journey, my decision to shift, the way I parent, to learn from the past, to learn from the ways that I was parented, and, just evolve. As humans, we're always evolving. And, we're always learning from the previous generations and figuring out how to do things a little better. And I understand the previous generations did the best they could. And I just think it's up to us to do the best we can. And for me, doing the best that I can was just, again, learning how to parent and be in relationship with my children in ways that were nonviolent, but also in relationship with my partners and my loves in nonviolent ways. And co-creating a thriving family culture, that's what it's all about. It's about learning, it's about being intentional and making a decision that, I want to make sure that I have a healthy, thriving family culture that isn't rooted in arguing, isn't rooted in, resentment being breeded, isn't rooted in someone wielding power over and control because of the way that historically, the power dynamics have been set up in family cultures where, it's like this hierarchy of the dad, then the mom, and then the oldest child to the youngest in terms of listen and obey, listen and obey, listen and obey. And ultimately, again, it breeds infighting, it breeds resentment, and it just doesn't allow families, from my perspective, it doesn't allow families to, who lean on those traditional hierarchical, models of being in a relationship with one another. It doesn't allow families to reach their fullest potential. And so, one of the reasons why I decided to create this training is because as someone who's been a serial entrepreneur, one of the things that we always did when we started a business was we created our mission statement, our vision statement, and our core values. And I thought to myself, if I'm willing to be that intentional about creating a business and making sure that our business has a foundation of very distinct things that me and my business partners agreed upon in terms of how we want to be for one another, as well as for the people we would serve as our customers, it started coming to my mind, well, why can't we do that as a family? Why can't we all agree on how we want to communicate, how we want our relationship to feel? And, what values do we want to be the foundation of these relationships? And then hold ourselves accountable to living those ideals and those values the same ways that I did within my businesses. And that's ultimately what sparked, the idea behind the training. And so what you'll get within this training is, 4 workshops, but with myself, Maryella Marie, and Thomas Parker. All of us are Grow Dialogue facilitators and coaches. And, I'm really excited for you, the listeners, the watchers, to, be able to meet, Thomas, because a lot of you, obviously you meet Maryella through the podcast, but I'm excited for you to meet Thomas as well and kind of get a sneak peek into the other side of our work in addition to, the podcast work.
Great. And for folks listening now who might be curious about this training, what are some signs that they may be a good candidate for this training and that the tools we offer will serve them?
I would think that you would be a good candidate for this training if you just realize that the culture, the conditions within your relationships, because you could take this as a couple or partners, or as a family dynamic with children or an extended family, of siblings and parents, et cetera. No matter what the dynamic, or small groups of people, that hold space together in any context, this is a great training for you. And I would say, again, you're a candidate if everything I said resonates. You realize that you're kind of always in a situation where you're putting out fires and you would like to be more proactive, create this common language that we help you create through the training so that when, change happens or tensions rise, you have something to look back on that can guide you on how to shift the energy, because tension is inevitable, unfortunately. Signals will get crossed. We're humans. However, it doesn't have to devolve or deteriorate relationships. It doesn't have to resort in arguing and bickering and yelling and resentment, or some people withdrawing and holding in their feelings and not feeling like they're heard within a relationship. So if any of those things, those negative elements are playing out in your relationships, and you believe that investing in your family or your relationships, no matter the context, is something that would bring value, then this training is for you.
Yes, I have experienced firsthand as a facilitator and just, being on both sides. I also took the course, took the training before I started to facilitate, and I definitely believe in the work, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of our listeners sign up for the training. So Soon-Jahta, what kind of feedback have you received from past participants?
We've gotten great feedback, just great feedback from others who have taken this training. I've done it over the years in several different iterations, whether it be, live trainings that I've done virtually in person, or now the recorded version that we're about to put out, where folks can take it on demand at any time. And, when you go to our website, you'll see a lot of the reviews, but, what I can say is, it's humbling, to hear people say that, this training has given them direction and has given them hope in terms of, getting back onto the same page with the people in their lives, the people they love, those folks who are willing to learn new skills in order to do so. It really feels really good. And, I'm really grateful for it. I'm not going to read you all, the feedback, because again, I encourage you to go to our website where you can read some of the reviews that we've put on the site. But yeah, it's been really humbling to receive such positive feedback.
Great. And finally, how can folks sign up for this training?
So if you visit our website, growdialogue.com/families, you'll get all the details of when, on how you can take this course. And we also have a community for ongoing, communication, where you can communicate with other people who have taken the course for community and camaraderie and accountability. And we also do a monthly coaching call where, one of us, Maryella, myself, or Thomas, will jump onto a Zoom and just talk through some scenarios and give our advice and perspectives based on, the things that we've learned from doing this within our lives, doing these practices within our lives, as well as going deeper into some of the trainings. As I said, there's 4 workshops, and you'll get a lot of good content and information, but there's more, and we'll have an opportunity to go even deeper within these coaching calls. So I hope that, something that I said really resonates, and some of you will make the decision to sign up for the course and the training, and we'll see you there. Thanks, Maryella. As always, until next time, I love y'all. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grow Dialogue podcast. Remember to join our Grow Dialogue community to continue the conversation, activate authentic dialogue, and to get exclusive content, discounts, and special offers on curated artwork and music from independent artists from the Americas. Check out our show notes for more info and visit www.growdialogue.com to join our live events. Don't forget to support us on Patreon. We really appreciate your support.